I was offered in human sacrifice and I died. I found myself in the slave trade of the astral world, of which is where I became a slave. I was taken to the submarine world of fallen angels, where I lived for 3 years. I was at the service of the goddess of love Magdalene, a member of Lucifer global government. I became a demon waging a deadly war against Christian, a merciless war where many of my friends died. I sense that I will die if I continue to fight this war of the goddess of love Magdalene. There was an incident where I vented my frustration against her and I shouted to the goddess, "I should have died, but the Lord knew me and spared me. I couldn't work for the goddess anymore, and she sent me to the astral world of slavery to work in the plantation of evil entrepreneur. The devil is a liar. When you sign an alliance or pact with him, even if you comply with his demand, in the end the devil will kill you before the time appointed by God, so that you may become a servant spirit and join his army." When I was cast out of the submarine dimension of fallen angels, I arrive in the slave industry of the astral world. By God's grace and intervention I came back to life in the natural world of men. After being dead for years, I came back to life with 3 other slaves in the middle of the equatorial forest, but every one of these slaves went his own way. When the hunters saw me they took to the city. It was imperative for me to remove the short that I have been wearing for 3 years. They brought razor and knives but couldn't cut my short. After 2 days of trying to remove it we abandoned. It was when I prayed in my heart to God for help that at that very moment I felt the short moved. I called the hunter, and after several hours of trying the short was removed from my body. We put it on the fire, but after several hours in the fire this diabolical short still didn't burn. Later, the short which was my identity in the invisible world of slaves finally disappeared by itself. It was imperative to remove this short because through invocations the astral world could transport me back to the satanic world just by mentioning the number of the short. This is exactly what happens to 3 other colleagues who had landed in the equatorial forest with me. Since they couldn't get rid of the mystical short, they were transported back to the world of Satan by invocation. Later these hunters showed me the way to the city. After walking for 3 days, I found myself on the main road. My impression was that I could see people, but it was as if they didn't see me. Then I saw a man who was tall. I was about to explain my problem to him. He told me, "Don't worry, I know everything happening to you, so you take this direction, which will lead you to a group of soldiers and you will explain the situation to them, and you will be taken to the office of the local authorities, who in turn will call the pastors for you." Beloved, things happened exactly as this man had predicted. I am sure this man was an angel or the Lord himself. The commander of these soldiers whom I met along the way was my uncle. And when he saw me, he went into coma and collapsed. Later, the soldiers transferred me to the local authorities. The latter launched an investigation to determine who I was. After a few days they discovered that my family lived in the eastern province, which was the neighboring province. They contacted my family by phone and the latter have confirmed that they had a son in the name of Matthew who died 3 years ago. The news reached the governor who came to visit me. After hearing the news a huge number of people came from the town to see me. When the governor informed the central government of the country, he was instructed to conduct an investigation in order to come to the bottom of this mystery. This investigation was named the Revenant file. After my arrest by the authorities the news spread. The whole region was boiling in turmoil because of me. The authority warned me, if it turns out that my story was a lie I will be publicly punished for this. At that time I was still influenced by powerful forces and I was unstable and strong, and I could break chains because my strength was not ordinary. In fact there were 72 demons that had entered my body. Each demon had the strength of 15 human. I remember one day while I was in my prison the soldiers and the police came to beat me up because they thought that I was a deceiver. When I was hit I jumped and broke the chains on my feet and legs, yet they were steel. When they tried to handcuff me I broke the handcuff because I had the strength of 72 demon. On that day I have beaten a whole police division, therefore they had to seek reinforcement to restrict me, but they could not. Even pastors that took care of me had to flee. People said the man that came from the cemetery cannot be overpowered. A pastor was called to come and pray for me by a soldier, but his wife hid him in the bedroom. Even if the soldier was begging for help, the pastor was hiding in the bedroom fearing me. When all pastor fled and would not help, the Lord sent a pastor that came from the forest. When he saw the crowd of people surrounding the police station, he was curious. They told him a man came from the cemetery and he is beating the police. He said, "I will pray for him and he will be fine." The police and soldiers told him, "If he capture you and kill you, there is nothing we can do, for he has many demons." The police warned him of the danger, but the pastor was fearless and prayed for me, and cast away demons. As a result, I got back to my consciousness and demon left me alone. The pastor proposed to take me to church and continue my deliverance, but he was informed by the regional authority that my file was under investigation by provincial and national government. In the night before sleeping, I was handcuffed on the hand and feet. To tell the truth, it was easy, not because my cousin who have sacrificed me had landed in the compound of the local authorities where the pastor took care of me. He landed in helicopter, yet there were pastors and soldiers who were there. This was a paranormal demonstration. My cousin had come to kidnap me and transport me to the submarine world, but this was a spiritual and physical battle. When my cousin came out of his mystical helicopter, I saw that he was dressed in white, and he was holding a briefcase full of money. He entered the local authorities' office where the pastors were with me, and asked them, "What will Matthew give you for your efforts? Take this money bag and go do business. But first you must deliver Matthew to me." Then the pastors started to exercise authority over him, and they used the name of Jesus against him, and he disappeared with his helicopter from the place. He was trying to capture me and take me back to the underwater world. Apart from my cousin the occultist, I was also threatened by my former wife, the mermaid, that I had left in the underwater world with 4 children. She was disappointed and she begged me to come back to her. Pastors could listen to his voice, but he couldn't see her. She came every night. Sometimes I wake up in the morning and I saw her sleeping by my side, and every time that she appeared I called pastors who couldn't see. She was complaining and crying, "How can you leave me with the children just like that?" I was sleeping, and when I woke up I saw that I was outside, and there was a man on my left and another on my right, and the soldiers that were guarding were deeply asleep, not knowing what was happening. I saw outside in the street 5 motorcycles with people on them, and among these people I saw my cousin, who had sacrificed me. He was working to transport me to the world of Satan. He sent a powerful wind that took me back to the world that is under the sea. The Lord is love. People in this region glorified God that a dead man came back to life, but then he disappeared just like that, and the authority was stunned and confused. My cousin, who was desperate to capture me, managed to take me from the police station where I was detained, and transported me back to the submarine world of demons. When I arrived to the submarine kingdom of fallen angel, I saw 3 of my friends that ate the salty food with me at the plantation. The 3 of my friends who landed in the equatorial forest with me were captured before me. I realized that the goddess Magdalene had already recaptured them before capturing me. They were captured when they were still in the equatorial forest. This is because they had failed to remove the black short that hid their number. They couldn't get rid of the mystical short. They were transported in the submarine world through invocation of the number of the short. These short number was our identity in the invisible world of slaves. But since I managed to get to the city, my cousin was desperately looking for a way to capture me. When I saw my friends, I noticed that they had been beaten seriously. They were exhausted and were bound on a tree. I was in terror when I saw this. Those who capture me said, "The man we have been looking for has arrived." I was in tears. I said, "Lord, I have already returned to the world of men, but how can you let me come back here?" In the meantime I was beaten and was in tears. My friends said, "We told you if we eat that food, bad thing will happen. Now see what is happening to us." That's when I saw people who have replaced us as the new guard of the goddess coming. They came to inspect us. In the meantime, my family that came to see me in the office of the police in the morning, they were not able to see me and the police were in panic. The people in the region were shocked to learn that the dead man who came back to life had disappeared. The people got angry and suspicious against the authority. but pastors that came from the east of the country to see me were praying for me, telling God, we are not going back until we see Brother Matthew. The population of the city were also praying for me and were disappointed and questioning God. Some were even challenging God. When the new guards of the goddess came to see us, they said to my cousin, the queen told us that this man that is a rebel should never come back in this world again, he should be on earth. But my cousin told them, if we send him back to earth I will suffer humiliation, for he will tell the world that I killed him. The guard said, fine, we will send him to a neighboring country as a made person and no one will recognize him. There was confusion and fighting between these agents of the satanic world. 3 days later the guards of the goddess came again and were angry to see me. They grabbed me and dropped me to earth like a stone. I saw that I was moving in great speed and was dizzy, falling until I felt that I reached the land. They wanted me to fall in the neighboring country, but when I opened my eyes I recognized the main street of the city where I was detained. I saw that they sent 2 demons to control me, and these demons were saying, this man was supposed to land in the neighboring country, why has he landed here? The 2 demons entered in my body and took over my body in order to lead me to their desired destination. That's when I saw a guy that was a boxer riding a bicycle. He was stunned to see me. He said, Matthew, the city is in turmoil because of you, everybody is looking for you. But the demon in my body took over my mouth and told him, mind your business, and they insulted him. He tried to take me by force back to the police station and the demon in my body began to fight him. I wanted to speak but I had no control over my mouth. A group of people that came from another province to see the dead man that came back to life were passing. The boxer that was fighting with me told them, this is the dead man who came back to life, that everybody is talking about. Please help me to control him and take him to the police. They all managed to control me and call the police. I was still not myself and was under the control of demon. My family that were leaving the city heard noises of people saying the dead man is back. They joined me at the police station. When the police were interrogating me, it was the 2 demons that were answering, so I spent 6 months in prison of the regional police. The government managed to find my death certificate and burial permit. They were terrified and were now convinced that they were dealing with a paranormal situation. They were dealing with a man who died 3 years ago and reappeared. He made telephone contact with my mother and they summoned her in the eastern province for an interview in order to advance this investigation. They asks my mother, Matthew, who is currently with us, and it is your son, right? We have his death certificate and his burial permit. My mother confirmed to them that I was her son. Later they undressed me. They asked my mother to identify the different scars in my body. My mother identified and she explained the history and origin of these scars. After questioning my mother, the national government instructed the regional government to arrest the cousin who sacrificed me for questioning, and during his interrogation my cousin the Satanists confessed to be the cause of my death. After my return to life I had to be baptized, but I was seriously under the control from the dark force. It is only men of God who could handle me because I had demonic strength. At some point I had to be baptized. But since I have lived in the world of Satan for 3 years, I knew the secret of the churches, even Catholic. They works with the devil. Many pastors have signed pact with Satan, so I was really careful. I was in need of a serious man of God. Several pastors told me that I was to receive the baptism, but I did not want to be baptized by pastors because I saw the great pastors and priests who came regularly to participate in meetings and summits organized by Lucifer in the submarine dimension. A lot of pastors were servants of Satan. I was therefore suspicious of pastor and I didn't want to be baptized by them. But one day I was sleeping. I had a vision in which the Lord recommended me to receive the baptism, but I have resisted the Lord. Later when pastors prayed for me, they received the same message in a vision where the Lord insisted, and he warned them that if I refused to take the baptism I will become dumb for 3 days. Then a few days later when I woke up in the morning I realized that I had become dumb. I started to communicate with the people with sign. The pastors have scheduled a day when I was supposed to receive water baptism. There was altercation between pastors for my baptism. I was so popular that the pastors fought to baptize me to capitalize on my popularity. There were no agreements between these pastors. Later the Lord intervened and warns that whoever want to baptize me must know that on the day of my baptism a serpent is going to attack the baptismal service to try to prevent it. Oracle of the Lord Jesus Christ. Many pastors who were fighting for my baptism gave up. Some agreed to baptize me despite this oracle of God. Back then I was short and my eyes was all white, for I had no black bowl and I was unstable. Sometimes I lost control because the forces of darkness influenced me. On that day of my baptism there were many people by the river who came to attend since my story was widespread in the region. I came to understand that the baptism is essential in the life of the Christian because after my baptism several demons who control me had left and I became completely free. That day I was in the water with many pastors. They sang hymns of praise and worship. After praising and worshipping the Eternal, the Apostle led the service of baptism. But as soon as he started this service I heard the crowd of people by the river shouting and they made great noise. For they saw serpents in the river, that were headed towards us. The people that came to attend this service escaped, and the pastors who was in the water came out of water to save themselves. I was left alone with the pastor. I saw the first snake that came from the left side. He hits the water and he was jumping and going down. The crowd watched this scene from afar and they screamed. I looked at this snake and noticed that the Apostle Mbo had his eyes closed and didn't want to watch. He had closed his eyes as soon as people shouted not to see what the cobra was doing, and then it disappeared from the water. Then I saw the second serpent that approached us and he surrounded us as the apostle had his eyes closed. The snake raised its head from the water. He was about 5 meters. To tell the truth, this serpent was the goddess Magdalene, one of Satan's wives, the mermaid of the toilet. This snake was looking at me, then she started talking to me and complaining. She told me, "Matthew, I loved you a lot and I gave you everything, but here is what you are doing to me. I'm disappointed by your actions and attitude." While this snake spoke, the pastor listened, but he had his eyes closed and did not want to see. The Holy Spirit has seized him and the pastor grabbed me and dipped me in the water and brought me out. Immediately after my baptism, the Princess Jacqueline disappeared. After leading investigations into my story, the national government had concluded that my story was true. They told the governor to transport me to the capital, for the government wanted to see me. But I knew that all of them, from the president up to members of government and parliament, have all signed pacts with the devil. One day I was in the meetings with these leaders, but when one of them was coming, I noticed that his upper part was that of a beast and his lower part was human. Later the first lady of the country gave money to this government agency to get me clothes. We went to a supermarket. But I noticed a man that was working in this supermarket. He was not an ordinary man but a ghost who already died, but this dead man was selling here in this supermarket. When this man saw me, he panicked because he realized that I had discovered his identity. As soon as he noticed that I knew his identity, he disappeared from among these workers. There was terror among workers. The news has spread over the city, but the agents of the intelligence service was not happy because they were all in occultism.